Hello, hello. This is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about some videos that Matt Walsh did that's super viral right now. He just did a lecture, and I guess, I mean, everybody, so many people who watch the clip, but I want to go through it and talk about it because there's some people who are criticizing him on the right about it being too mean, and I just don't understand that. So I want to go through it. I'm at least going to go through one. They're kind of long segments and between. I'm going to try not to jump in too often because I think Matt does a pretty good job. But there's just some comments that are just like puzzling to me, really puzzling to me from some folks on the right. So I'm just kind of like, is there going to be a point where if the conversations he has are too mean? I don't know where we go from here. He's definitely said some harsh stuff before, but I don't see how this qualifies. So you guys can be the judge as we go through it. Also, D&D is getting rid of their half-elves, and I'm not a D&D person, so I am bringing my sister today who is into D&D and to talk about it a little bit with me. But they think that it's inherently racist for some reason. And when she plays, she's a half elf. So we talked about it a bit the other day, and she was fired up. And we talked about it today, and she was fired up. And it's just really, I don't know. To me, it comes off, and we'll go through an article from Bounding into Comics that talks about it. Kind of seems like it's inherently racist if they count the one drop rule or so. I don't know. They didn't really go into it from the conversation. They just like definitively it's racist, and it's really weird. It's really weird. There's a lot of people who are upset about it, but apparently they've been doing some woke stuff with their game. If you thought I was talking about the film, I didn't see the film, so everyone I know really enjoyed it. So you can go and see and enjoy the film, but what the company is actually doing with their games is very interesting. Also, the White House can't say if purposely shooting up Christians is a hate crime, apparently. So we'll be talking about that today as well. So before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. Please check out different merchandise that we have at the store, like we got a black tea mug, we got the You Are Not That Special, and we also do have those on mugs and some other stuff, so please check that out. Also, my book, Of Course Guys Blatantly Against Abortion, is also available for pre-order. You guys can go ahead and pick that up. Right now, you can pre-order it if you're getting it digitally on Amazon, or if you're getting it digitally on Barnes and Nobles, but it will be available in paperback, so make sure you guys are signing up on the website. I do have other books that I have. Mostly I have fiction books, and sometimes people ask about whether or not they're appropriate for their kids and other stuff like that. So I did do like a short video. I think I went through this a little bit yesterday, so I'm going to go into it today, but I did a short on my YouTube channel. So and I posted it on my Ninja Dust Facebook page. I'm going to share that to my Black Tea page as well. So if you're curious about that, it gives a kind of an overview. If you have specific questions about specific titles, I will try to answer those as well. I love to write. There's my picture with all of them, which I got to take a picture with my new one as well, but those are my 15, but I do have like 16 now. Very soon to have 17 because I do have another book that I want to have out when I go to Motor City Comic Con, which, by the way, if you are in the Metro Detroit area, I will be at Motor City Comic Con on, I don't remember the date, but it's in May. It's next month. It's like in the teens days, I think, but it's next month in May. So I'll have a table there. My sister will have a table there. Usually we're seated right next to each other. So if you're in the area, you can come and buy a book, get something signed, chit chat, whatnot. Yeah. Okay, so I don't have. Oh, lastly, if you want to support Black Tea News, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate. Cost stream on my website, all the good stuff. So if you would like to support, I very much appreciate it. Otherwise, thank you guys for liking and commenting, etc. If you're watching on Facebook, you send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also do super chats and stuff. So anyway, I don't have a meme for you guys today. I was looking and nothing like tickled my fancy today. So, but if you guys have any memes that you think I might be interested in and might want to post, the easiest way, I guess, for me to see it, until I guess my account becomes overwhelmed. my Twitter account is kind of small. So if you just at me or something and you got an interesting meme, that's probably the easiest way for me to see it or something. So if you send me weird stuff, you will be muted and blocked. But if you got a good meme and you want to make it on the show, and it's just at me. It doesn't have to be a meme either. It can be a video. We watched I think it was yesterday, maybe we watched a video, and we replayed it again because it was so funny. So if there's something that you think would be interesting, you can go ahead and send it. So before we get to the Matt Walsh thing, I do want to quickly go through this snippet of our press secretary. She was asked, if it comes out that the Christians in Nashville at the Christian school and the staff at the Christian school were targeted specifically because they're Christian, would that be a hate crime? And she did not give a good answer.
Former Vice President Pence said that if the shooter who killed 6 people in that Christian school in Tennessee was motivated by a hatred towards Christians, that the crime should be categorized as a hate crime. I'm wondering what the president thinks of that kind of designation.
It's not for us to decide.
It's not for you to decide. You don't have a opinion, though. I know you do. And I don't think if it was like a white nationalist who attacked anyone else, or if it was particular attacks on the LGBT community, they wouldn't have a problem calling it a hate crime, giving it that designation. They wouldn't. They keep listing stuff and talking about stuff, just people dying who are LGBT or trans, or like the trans community is being attacked, and it's not even like that. Like specifically because they're trans, not true. If they'll think there'll be a news story about someone who was trans and was killed, and they'll say, "Oh, the trans community, they're under attack." Are they under attack because they're specifically trans? Which people believe this, but this is something that's repeated again and again, and on the left as a talking point. I was going back and forth with someone on my Twitter account, and they're like, the people are out here being killed because they're trans. They said just because they're trans. I said, just because they're trans, that's quite a statement. Do you have evidence for that? And they're like, if I give you evidence, are you going to accept it, or are you going to weasel your way out of it? And I said, you have to prove that it's because they're just trans. And so then they posted an article of someone who was killed. Article, if it was a USA Today article, nothing about any sort of motive, but the article itself did list this is another person in the trans community who was killed. It spoke nothing to motive, and I'm like, there's nothing in there that says anything about them being killed just because they're trans. And they're like, I knew you'd try to weasel your way out of it. I'm like, it's not true what you're claiming. It's just not true. That'd be like, and I already gave this example because I've mentioned this before, but it'd be like if if a man and woman is in a domestic situation and he ends up hurting her or maybe killing her, and they're like, another, black woman targeted by violence, and they make it sound like he did it because he's racist rather than she was a black woman who was a victim of violence. So, They play games. They really do. Did you guys know that the shooting that happened at the baseball field wasn't classified as a hate crime for the longest time? The DOJ, for whatever, didn't give it that designation until like people had to push back on it, which obviously the Republicans were targeted for their ideology, since the shooter was like, this is for healthcare, as he was trying to murder them. So it's a double standard. Like, you can't say that if, and how the question was phrased, if it turns out that she went and she killed these kids and the people, the adults at the school, at this Christian school, and targeted them because they are Christians, is that a hate crime? Oh, it's not for me to say. She works under the administration. Granted, again, he was a candidate, but when Jacob Blake was shot, they're like, we need investigation and we need a full accountability. We need to hold them accountable for what they did. And Kamala Harris was like, I'm proud of him, and talking about Jacob Blake and when they went and visit him and all this stuff. And it's while Kenosha just starts burning when he was called on by his girl after he like had allegedly assaulted her, and he has kids in the car and a weapon, and the police officer's like, I don't want him to take these kids and they be as a hostage, and he's armed. And over that situation, that's why all that chaos happened with Kenosha and Kyle Rittenhouse, etc. So wiggling and saying, oh, it's not for us to say. Again, here's another. The National School Board Association, I'm sure you guys have heard of this, and if you've listened to me for a while, you know I've brought this up quite a few times, coordinated with the White House to write a letter to send it to the Justice Department, to Merrick Garland and them, to get them to use things suggested like the Patriot Act to come after these parents or whoever who's coming to these school board meetings and being disruptive or threatening or whatever. And part of the evidence that they had in the list of reasons why they need the Patriot Act to do all this stuff was that parent in Virginia, his daughter was sexually assaulted in a bathroom by a boy in a skirt. So that was, it wasn't all the members of the school board association. It was just like two. You can go, there's an article on blackteennews.com you could check out. But they coordinated with the White House to conspire to make this letter to send it to the DOJ so the DOJ could do something. So this White House is so awful. So awful. There was another clip that I wanted to show you guys too from one of her press conferences. The White House is just bad in general, but she is a bad press secretary, but overall, the whole administration is trash.
And today, Indiana just banned puberty blockers, hormone therapies, and gender transition surgeries for minors. I'm wondering what the president's reaction is to the Indiana governor signing that bill into law, and does the president have a position on at what age these kinds of therapies and surgeries are appropriate?
That's something for a child and their parents to decide. It's not something that we believe should be decided by legislators.
So, they have an opinion about whether kids should be able to decide whether they should be able to chemically castrate themselves or have double mastectomies and all that stuff. It's very weird, the White House and their priorities. But again, the White House last year put out a document saying Joe Biden said if you love your kids, you'll affirm them, and then they put out a list of ways that you could affirm them, which included the surgery and other things like that. So, what a radical administration. Anyway, let's get to the we'll do the D&D stuff last. I want to get through the Matt Walsh, the first video anyway. So people were upset with this. I've been seeing good things about the conversation, but Matt Walsh had wrote on Twitter that he had some people who were pushing back from the conservative sphere that saying that he was too mean. And then I saw someone react to his post and try to justify it. When we get to that point, I'll pause it and then I'll show you the tweet. But we're going to watch this clip that they had posted online. It's about 7 minutes, so it's a longer video that we're going to watch. But I think it's worth it. I'm going to try not to interject a lot because I think Matt does a really good job, taking this down, but I'll react when I think it's necessary.
Matt. I'm transgender. I'm born and raised here in New Mexico. I have a graduate degree in information technology, marketing, business, and finance. I own my own home. I pay taxes. I have a 6-figure job. I'm a respected professional in Albuquerque. I'm a mother. My life experience is that I'm an awesome person. I am well liked. I'm responsible, and
I know I said I wouldn't interject much, but just the whole why is it that you can't, I don't know, want to have experience or push or live out some more feminine attributes or whatever, and still, I don't know, call yourself a dad? Why a mom? Like, moms are, you have a mom and a dad, and I know there's extended families and people who you consider honorary or people who are adoptive or whatever, but moms and dads, you have those two things. You have your you have people who gave you genetic material, and one of them, produces the sperm, and one of them produces the egg, right? And one of them carries you in their womb for 9 months. So if he has a child, why feel the need to not recognize himself as that child's father rather than changing it and being his mom? That is weird in my opinion, but we'll keep going.
I think I'm pretty cool. You touched on something. You said something earlier that for you, when somebody calls you a man, it doesn't faze you because, you just know that you're a man. That was interesting to me because I feel the same way about my identity as a woman. My question leading up to this, you've asserted that no one would ever see me as a woman, that nobody would ever see or could see a transgender person as a woman, and yet I have dozens of friends from diverse backgrounds, women from the reservation, a woman from Japan, several immigrant women. I have my coworkers, I have my boss, my VP, my CEO, all respecting me as a woman, my family, my long-term friends who are actually here with me. All of these people assure me, I'm a woman. They'll tell me, girl, there is no way you are a man. They see me as a woman.
So, okay, before we get to his question, I just thought of something, and I don't know, I promise about not interjecting too much, but I guess that's why you're watching, for the commentary. So, people in your life you need people who are going to be straight with you, people who are going to be real with you. Then there are people around you who are sympathetic to the situation, so they can coddle, or they can wiggle around, or they might say stuff to spare your feelings. And sometimes people just sort of affirm not good things. So this is in general. So just gonna tell a short story. One day I was out to lunch with a friend, and I just kind of said, oh, I need to lose some weight or something. And they were just like, oh no, you look great, you look fabulous, and you don't need to do that. And I just kind of smiled, because I didn't say it because I have low self-esteem or something, and I was just ragging on myself. I just said it as a fact of life. I needed to lose some weight. It wasn't like a cry, like me saying it as a cry for help or something. It was just some throwing it out there because I did something I need to do and get handled or whatever. And in my mind, and I knew they were just trying to be sweet and be kind and supportive and build me up, but at the same time I'm like, it was kind of trashed. I don't know. A better way, I think, at least to have handled that situation, have been like, oh, let me, what do you need help with, or, what are you thinking about doing? Is there a gym? Encouraging, this revelation and to like a positive trajectory to try to help me on a path of doing some constructive things, toward something that would be good for me. But I know they're just trying to be, like, again, sweet and, build up my self-esteem and my self-image. And I get that, but I'm like, you don't always need people around you that are going to, sometimes you need tough love, but you don't even need to say it like in a tough way. Like there are ways to be supportive, again, on a more constructive path. So just because people are going around saying yes, 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 that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all doing what's right or what's best for you. So anyway, let's keep a watching.
Question.
Okay.
How can you assert that nobody would ever see me as a woman when my material experience tells me you're wrong?
Okay. It's interesting that that's the part of my talk you chose to ask a question about, because that's not in my talk at all. I don't believe I said that no one would ever see you as a woman. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, that you could fool someone. Now, you brought this up, so I have to tell you that you brought this up. You've put your identity on the table for conversation. And so I'm going to say you wouldn't fool me at all. I mean, I see a man 100%. And I think that most people would. Now, the fact that you have...
Okay, so that's the moment that people think is too mean. And I think that's ridiculous that people think that section right there is too mean, because Matt is correct. He put himself out there to be cross-examined. He put himself on the stand as the evidence. Like, his whole argument is people around me affirm and see me as a man. So Matt's just like, I'm not one of those people, bruh. So he's the one who introduces conundrum. There's a video of someone, and they had a pretty decently large account on TikTok, and they're like, I've never met someone who's a they them who's a 10, and he said that they're usually not attractive or whatever. So so many people started stitching his video or duetting his video, and then, I don't know, trying to prove him wrong. And then so many people will go in the comments like, nah, the search still continues. You ain't a 10. So, like, they open themselves up for people to have this criticism, and people who are like, oh, y'all so mean for doing it. I'm like, why would you, like, like, at this point, you're openly calling people to judge you off of, like, your appearance and stuff. There eventually, and I did go through a lot of videos myself, there was like a person or two who was up there and, attractive. I don't know if I would say I saw any 10s, but there was a few people who did it who were, attractive. Most people was like a swing and a miss. But if you put yourself out there in that kind of way, how could you not expect people to react? It was like fair game. And so let me show you guys this tweet that from Matt and this comment in reply. So Matt said, I've had a few conservatives already messaging me to tell me that I ruined this exchange by being cruel and telling the trans person that he looks like a man, but there's no cruelty in it. He does look like a man. He's lying to himself, and he's the one who put his identity on display, etc., blah, blah, blah. Now, I would say his tweet in defense of this is, I don't think his tweet is mean, but it probably has a meaner tone than this actual exchange that's going on. So, you had Noam Bloom, who said, excusing nasty behavior with, I'm not going to lie to these people is deflection, because unless they asked you how they looked, you're providing an unsolicited comment on their appearance, which is irrelevant to the discussion. So yeah, you did obliterate your points. This reminds me of an excellent scene from the movie Tar, where she rips into a woke student who doesn't want to play music by old white men. Her points are correct, but she's cruel about it, and it chases a student out of class, thus achieving the Pyrrhic victory at best. I think that's how you say Pyrrhic victory. I know what it is, but I think that's how you say it. But again, the whole purpose is a cross-examination. People in his life says, "Oh, there's no way that you're a woman. Oh, there's no way that you're a man. Oh, you're such a man." Blah blah. And people see him as a man, etc. So there's a difference between you in a bubble around people who are trying to be polite to you, versus you go out in the real world and how everyone else responds. If he came into the bathroom, I'd be like, "Sir?" If he came into the locker room, I'm not going to say, "There's no way that you're a man. Of course you belong here." That wouldn't be the thing that goes off in my head. So everyone around him who is giving him this impression are the ones doing a disservice, in my opinion. And he's not going to have his argument is basically that. And Matt will continue to go through it. But to the people on the right who said that Matt commenting on his appearance of he didn't say that you're an ugly man. He didn't say that. He just said you look like a man, and he is a man. I understand, like, giving unsolicited opinions about whether people are ugly or attractive or whatever. I have opinions, but I don't, I don't really, I mean, I do find that like unnecessarily mean in most cases online. So, I try not to, even about really celebrities, I don't really, want to really comment that much online about stuff like that. Even Madonna's face situation, I didn't want to comment about that until she's like, "You guys, this is just ageism." I'm like, "Wait a second, ma'am." I'm like, you can't blame ageism and stuff when you're not out here trying to age gracefully. You're the one doing stuff to your face, ma'am. If you want to age gracefully, age gracefully. We don't say everyone's out here ageism, sexism, or whatever. Like, now we got to talk about it. But he just said he looks like a man, and the conversation is, do you pass or do you not? So if that was too mean, I don't know where we go, what kind of discussions we can have. I mean, I guess he could have not said it, but again, that the whole argument is, everyone tells me that I'm a woman, so I am. That's pretty much the argument. But we'll continue watching.
Have people in your life who are saying to you, "Oh, you're totally a woman." It's exactly what I'm talking about. No one in my life has ever once said to me, "You're totally a man, Matt." If a friend of mine called me on the phone and said, "Listen, Matt, I want you to know you're really a man," I would think that there was something wrong with him. I would say, "Why are you saying that at all? It doesn't make any sense." So the fact that this is a conversation to begin with tells me, it only proves the point that I'm trying to make, that your identity, even in your own mind, is up for, it's something that you need to be assured of. Now, what I would like to ask you, again, because you're standing here, and so you've brought your identity on the table for discussion. So how do you know that you're a woman?
It was first when I heard transgender persons describe their experience in their own words, and this was only about 2 years ago. Hearing somebody describe things, it was a woman from like England, describing her experience, her childhood, her teenage years, and it blew my mind to be listening to her, because it was just some podcast that I was listening to while I was like doing laundry. But it blew my mind to hear somebody so eloquently and precisely describe things that I had experiences
What
that
was
I
the
had
description?
experienced.
What did they say?
Okay, so I am honestly hesitant. I know that you touched earlier about the difficulty that transgender women might have in describing their identity, but I want to state, I honestly don't feel that you would engage in this conversation in good faith.
Then why are you here? Why did you stand up to...
So I've run into situations like this before, and they're like, "I don't want to go forward because I don't feel like you would engage in good faith." And there's plenty of people who aren't engaging in good faith. and good faith about, like, if you make a claim, like, prove your claim. So what's not good faith? Like, that I believe that you're not a woman. So is it not good faith because I don't feel like I can be moved on that? Like, I want, that still doesn't excuse it from not being able to make your claim. That's why you're in an echo chamber, because you're surrounding yourself around people who will only tell you one thing, and you're not being challenged by a simple question of, how do you know that you're a woman? If you're a man, how can you possibly know that? How can you know that? And he's talking about, first of all, he's only been, so, like, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. So is this something that he experienced in his childhood, questioning like that? Because there are people who are experiencing, like, dysphoria or something like it later in life with no sort of earlier present signs, like in their adolescence of it, but they're listening to stuff online. They've stumbled down the dark reaches of Tumblr, or people who are trans on TikTok or YouTube and other places, Reddit, and they start self-diagnosing. So this is just 2 years ago, and we had a big mental health situation with COVID and others. I'm not, someone brought that up. I'm like, I don't know if that applies or whatever, but people just not have been well, just period, for the past 2 years. But they've come to this conclusion. So this is not a long thing that has been diagnosed within his life. And so someone asked me, like, the other day, and I did a video to it asking, like, what's my opinion about trans people, not like crazy people on the internet or whatever, just like in general. And I said a couple different things, but the thing I want to bring up is that I said I think it's very important for trans people. I do believe that people experience gender dysphoria, and I believe that trans people need to gatekeep the crap out of themselves. That's what they need to do. All these, like, companies flying the trans flags and doing all this kind of stuff and giving this visibility and giving people, like, this, I don't know, trophy if they come out in that sort of way. I don't think it's good, because a lot of people are self-diagnosing. If you don't believe that, just look up some people who were detransitioning, who saw stuff online, heard people's experience of whatever, blah, 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 and they're like, oh, I'm totally a man. And they go through the process, chop off their boobs, and they're like, oh gosh, I made a mistake. Or they permanently altered their voice, and they're like, I made a mistake. All within, like, a short span of time. Like, there's one woman who's on 60 Minutes, and she went through self-diagnosis, transitioning, including getting her breast chopped off, and detransitioning, all within the span of a year. All within the span of a year. You can call Planned Parenthood and get hormones in, like, 30 minutes. After a conversation. At least that's what, I haven't done it, but other people have said that was their experience. So many people are being fast-tracked, whether it's based off ideology or politics, or just the moolah you get when you make someone a slave of big pharma. But people need to gatekeep this condition, because there are people who have dysphoria, who've had it throughout adolescence, and you need to give kids the liberty to grow out of it without encouraging it so much, because a lot of kids will grow out of it and will either just be gay or they will be straight. There's people who have questions about their gender. Sometimes it's not dysphoria, it's just people feeling uncomfortable during, growing pains, puberty, and other kind of stuff like that. So you need to give people the liberty to find out who they are without trying to change who they are, and grow comfortable with who they are. But people who do have gender dysphoria, they need to, like, hey, this is a serious thing, and treating it like it's some kind of virtue all in itself, and the big celebrations and all that stuff, the parades or whatever that people have when people self-affirm within a few months and start taking drugs and all that stuff. That's not good. It's not good, because people aren't getting true medical care. So in general, that's a big problem. That's a big problem. So again, just heard this stuff 2 years ago and is already on this path and is so sure because he heard some experiences from women or trans people and heard other women and their experiences, like, oh, that's me. And I'm writing an article right now. I'm expanding on one of my videos that I did about cisgender and why people find that it offensive, and going into the men and women are different and our experiences are different, and just reflecting about the experiences that women have. Our biology we're not reduced down to our biology. Like, that's not all I am. Like, it's what I am is a woman. There's no particular virtue in it. I didn't choose it. I decided. It was just my parents, got together, and it was determined in the womb that I was going to be female, right? And that's not who I am. I mean, that's part of what I am, but my sex and my experiences from just biology, different things going through, has had an effect on my life, because there's things you can't get away from. Think about women in other countries who couldn't go to, or young women who couldn't go to school or had to stop going to school because they didn't have sanitary products. Like, that's a big thing. Or women just thinking about, gosh, what is my period going to be like this month? And I'm sorry if that's TMI, but it's awful. It's awful. And I'm going to go ahead and say this, and not all women experience them the same, but if you're a dude in here and you don't know what it feels like, do you know a xenomorph from Aliens? And again, not all women experience this, but I've said this to a lot of women and they can relate. They can relate to this, okay? It's going to get kind of like, maybe this is too little too real for you, but here's a trigger warning. My period at least feels like a xenomorph from the movie Aliens is trying, you know how they impregnate people with their tongue thing? It feels like it's going inside of you from the front of your kuka, and the baby's trying to exit through your butthole. That is what it feels like. You're gonna tell me a man knows what that feels like and has experienced that every month for 22 years? I don't think so. I don't think so. So you just don't know. You just don't know. And that's not the only stuff that makes women women, but our biology dictates so much of our life. If businesses got together and said, we're going to get rid of maternity leave, dudes might be like, oh, that sucks. Women would say this is an attack on working women. They would think it was a grave civil rights violation of trying to push women out of the workforce. It would be detrimental to women if there was just no maternity leave anymore. If they just got rid of it. That would shift so much for families, men and women, but particularly women. When Roe v. Wade people were like, oh, I don't know what a woman is. I don't know what a woman is. Everybody knew what a woman was when Roe v. Wade went down. It was get your law out of our uteruses. Stop trying to control women. They're trying to oppress women. They don't think women are equal, and all this jargon. People knew what a woman was when it comes to abortion. When it comes to abortion, they're like, men don't get a say. What is a man? Can you even define it? So how can you say men don't get a say? So men and women have different experience. We just do. Now there are experiences that we have that are similar, and we can empathize with each other, sympathize with each other, etc. And we have similar emotions. There's more differences, between us than we give credit for. But that just means that if you have certain feelings as a man, and you think that there's feelings that women have, that just means that as a man you can have those feelings. It doesn't mean you're a woman. Like, oh, they have a female brain. What are the chromosomes of your brain, sir? Anyway, let's keep going.
Talk to me if you don't want to have a conversation. You're saying that you discovered that you're a woman. I'm asking you how you did. That's a very fair question.
Okay.
How do you know that you're a woman?
That's fine. All right. So first of all, listening to transgender people, and it was like, okay, this is a one-off, one person describing these things. Things like looking at yourself in the mirror and not recognizing yourself. Hearing compliments like, you are such an example, like a positive.
Looking in the mirror and not recognizing yourself. That's an example of, now I think like having full blown dysphoria is different than what I'm about to describe, but just in general, like looking at yourself and not recognizing yourself, people who are, you know, athletic or something, and something happens and they start gaining weight, whatever, if they look and they're like, I don't recognize myself, or people who are having midlife crisis and they look at how old they look all of a sudden, I don't recognize myself. People who go on get on drugs and they see how their body is, or how much damage they've done to themselves, I don't recognize myself. People who are vastly injured in some kind of way, whether, you know, they have some kind of stroke or something, they can look at themselves, or maybe it's a car accident or something. Maybe it's a fire, and they're like, this isn't the person who I recognize or see myself as, but they have to overcome those things and just remember that who they are is who they are inside, and it's not, you know, just a physical manifestation of who they are. They're bigger than that. So to just say, oh, I looking in the mirror and not recognizing yourself or not feeling comfortable. So many people know what it's like to not feel comfortable with their bodies. Again, I think there's a difference between like those kind of general feelings and something maybe manifesting to full dysphoria, but maybe a lot of people wouldn't feel the need to transition if people would just work out some of those feelings more. But if you go to a gender clinic, they want you to go on that path of eventually transitioning. That is the push. Not everyone who has dysphoria, transition is the answer. Chad Felix Green, I just retweeted something of his talking about this. Let me look it up really quick. But Chad Felix Green, he had gender dysphoria, and he read When Harry Met Sally, which Amazon like banned at one point. I don't know if it's still banned on there, but he said he read that book and he found it to be so compassionate about his condition, and so he's just living as a gay man, you know, and he's, you know, right leaning and stuff, but he has dysphoria, but that transitioning, and I think he was thinking about it and stuff, but that wasn't the way to deal with his dysphoria. Not everybody has to go down that particular path. So he tweeted out, no one really believes this gender nonsense. People pretend to believe it because they think it makes them look morally superior and compassionate. They love outraging conservatives and mocking our backward, bigoted ignorance. Notice they always bring it back to sex. They just want to be in the picture, raising their fist for some cause they can brag about for the next 40 years. They love fantasizing about how boring and miserable and frightened and sexually suppressed conservatives are. It's pure narcissism. It's all exploitation. They want to be fashionable, cool, sophisticated. It's all to show off their virtue, their pity trans people. They pity, I'm sorry, it's all to show off their virtue. They pity trans people. They want to be viewed as heroes. The cruelest part of all this is how they've convinced everyone they're the ones who truly care. Trans are just a trendy accessories. And I agree with that. I agree with that. I had wrote an article saying that like Christians, they'll baptize their children in water, and leftists will baptize their children in sexual perversion. Because they find virtue in it. They find, you know, perversion and confusion and stuff. You know, they're so progressive, they're so woke, they understand, and blah blah blah. There's this one person who I used to be friends with on TikTok. If you follow me on TikTok, you probably know what I'm talking about. But I heard on a live once that they didn't care about kids, and then they started changing their tune with a lot of like the gender ideology stuff, and they started saying stuff like, you know, kids know who they are. Just trust the kids. Like, who are you really trying to protect? Are parents trying to protect their kids, or are they trying to protect their feelings? Are they just living in fear? And so when that language started, it started to creep me out, because I don't trust people who like want to get in the way of parents protecting their kids. Like, kids, you know, you got to give them room to grow and you know, whatever, and mature, but kids just don't know. Let's be honest, kids don't know stuff. Kids can be so sure of something. And adults, think about adults who are so sure about something, period, whether in their 20s or later, but, you know, particularly when they're younger, they're so sure of something, and then they're completely changed within a couple years or whatever, you know? When I was a kid, someone had, and I don't know how many of you are religious on here, but someone had prophesied to me about writing books, and my dad writes books. And so I or has written books, and they're, are all faith-based books. And I just thought that was like, I got a writing, because I don't know, I just, in my mind, I only thought that was the only thing I could do as, I don't know, a PK or something, was write like a religious book. And I'm like, oh, that sounds so boring. I was a kid when they said this. And what's the thing I love to do? I love to write. And I've published now 16 books, and I have over 30 that's finished. So this, you just don't know when you're a kid. But this particular example I've used a lot, I've said this a lot, but when I was a kid, my dad told me that when we get to heaven, we'd have powers like the X-Men. And this is the height of the da-na-na-na-na cartoon. And after he told me that, I looked my dad dead in his eye and said gleefully, with sparkles in my eyes, as if I could already feel Jubilee's powers flowing through me, I said, "Kill me, Daddy, please." I asked my daddy to murder me so I could go to heaven with powers like the X-Men. And at that point, he realized he had made a massive mistake. And he then, corrected the record, explained why that was bad. Except, obviously, I'm here to live to tell the tale. He did not meet my request, and I did not take things into my own hands. But kids just don't understand so much. So I don't trust people who are just like, just trust the kids. They know who they are. The kids don't know. Like, they have people transitioning, like socially transitioning. Like, oh, I knew they were a boy when they were 3 or a girl when they were 3 years old, and that they were really trans. I'm like, how is that possible? It's not. I'm like, my niece can't even like tell the difference between she and her. Like, she said she's 5. And she'll be like, oh, hers is, or she'll just mix them up. And I'm just like, what? And I'll correct her, and she'll be like, okay. And I'm like, but it doesn't sound like she's really getting it, or she gets bored quickly. And I'm like, I'm like, why are you saying it? Like, how does it even become the natural thing that you do? So kids don't understand all these things. They don't. But the parents, they are impressionable and they're malleable. And that's why so many of these activists want access to the kids, so they can mold the generation into the way that they want them to go. Anyway, let's keep watching.
Degree in information technology, marketing, business, and finance.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe pause it too long.
See that transgender women might have in describing their identity, but I want to state, I honestly don't feel that you would engage in this conversation in good faith.
Then why are you here?
So,
why did you stand up to talk to me if you don't want to have a conversation? You're saying that you discovered that you're a woman. I'm asking you how you did. That's a very fair question.
Okay.
How do you know that you're a woman?
That's fine. All right. So first of all, listening to transgender people, and it was like, okay, this is a one-off, one person describing these things. Things like looking at yourself in the mirror and not recognizing yourself. Hearing compliments like, you are such an example, like a positive masculine role model. And just hearing that and being like, it feels like they're talking about somebody else. It means feeling alone, even when you're surrounded by guys, even when you have a lot of friends. And I was active in like Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. I had great masculine role models my whole life. And yet I never felt like I belonged. I felt welcome and included.
Why does that make you a woman?
Because
as opposed to just a man who doesn't get along with some other men, or a man who's depressed, or a man who doesn't feel at home totally in his body, which, by the way, is a pretty universal human experience. Everybody goes through it at one time or another. So in what way does that make you a woman, though? And it's interesting. You're telling me that you listen to the experiences of other transgender people.
Well, yeah.
But what about women?
So
because trans women are women, you would say, right?
I would say that. Yeah.
Exactly the same?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then why do you need to hear the testimony of quote unquote trans women? Like how you pick any actual woman in this room? In what way do you know that you belong in the same category as them?
I know because they tell me. So here was
You need them to tell you what you are?
Women. Yes. I trust the opinions of the women around me.
And if most women,
it's incredible. You might try it sometime.
If most women voted and said they don't see you as a woman, would you say I'm not a woman anymore?
If who?
If most women voted and said they don't see you as a woman anymore, would you then relent and say I'm not a woman?
I would say most people on the planet have no idea who I am. I'm going to trust the opinions of the people who've spent their lives with me.
So, appeal to your bubble, I guess. I don't know if there is a technical, term for that, but so the opinion of everyone else doesn't. So he trusts women, but not women, just women who are around him, who will be nice to him and affirm and stuff. But I don't even know if that's true, because so many people will cut their family out of their lives if they don't affirm. You know, and it's very sad to read different articles and read different accounts of parents who will go along because they're afraid that their child will self-harm. And a lot of people will go along just for social respectability, not because they actually believe, you know, people can change their sex and gender or whatever. But he doesn't really trust women. He trusts women who will agree with him. That's what it is, you know. And you know, I've seen it time and time again. It's, oh, women are great, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Whether it's this issue or if it's black people, like, oh, black people are amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then you don't agree with somebody. And it's like, oh, someone called me a token today, but they said, they didn't outright call me a token. We were talking about trans issues or whatever. There was two people were debating, and they're both trans. One person was passable as a woman, the other wasn't. So someone in a comment had said, who's that woman, talking about the one who, I assumed talking about the one who was passable. And I said they're both men. And then some people got mad at me, and one person, and they claimed they were black, but they said first they said, well, they look more like women than you do. And I personally disagreed with that, but I'm like, all I said was, that doesn't change that they're men and that I'm a woman. Like, that doesn't change regardless of however you feel, you know? And then out of nowhere, they're like, conservatives just think you're a token N-word. I'm like, who is talking about conservatives? Who is talking about white people? Like, no, but that's like out of nowhere. I'm like, just if you feel that way, why don't you just say it? Just say it. I mean, they wouldn't say it to my face, but I'm like, just say it. Like, yourself, that's what you think of me, because I said something you didn't like. So I don't get that. Like, I've been conservative since I was, I don't know, I've been like politically minded about things maybe since I was about 12. I'm 33 right now. So I didn't get involved in like politics until I was the Romney election. So I graduated from high school in 2007, and that election with Romney and Obama, that was 2012. So everyone who was conservative in my circle were black. It was our family, it was our church, you know. So I did conservative white people, that was like a later addition to my life. So a lot of my views and my opinions and my morals and stuff are not shaped by white conservatism. So, but anyway, that's what they threw out there because I didn't affirm or go along with what they wanted. So they attack. So, you can trust women and you can believe all women or whatever until they don't do what you want. Like Dylan Mulvaney and all these folks are like, oh, women are great. I love being a girl, blah, blah, blah. But to the women on Twitter who don't like me, be careful, because your tweets will come back to haunt you. Like, okay, bruh, keep your threats up. I'm not gonna shut up. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep speaking the truth, not my truth, the truth.
But you are relying on other people to tell you who you are, is what we're establishing.
For context, I know you like to say, everybody's rawing and supporting transgender people, and yet they're still killing themselves, etc. But I'm standing here in a room full of people applauding you and asking questions like, how can I put out legislation here in New Mexico, my home state I grew up in, to try to reverse transgenderism? I'm not safe. And it
How are you
wasn't...
not safe? You just said you're standing in a room with people who disagree with you and you're perfectly fine. So how are you not safe?
That's...
Okay, look, we're going round and round. You don't want to answer any of the questions. Maybe we'll...
Why the nervous laughter? That was a really good moment. I'm very glad that he quickly said that. I thought Matt handled this whole thing very well. Sometimes you're watching stuff and you're like, "Oh, say this." Like when I was watching Noel's debate, Bronte Rimzik, about abortion, he did a pretty good job. I wouldn't have handled things the way that he handled it, but there are definitely times I'm like, "Say this," and he didn't. But I thought Matt handled this so well. So it's discouraging that there are people on the right who are messaging him or just saying blatantly online that he was too mean or too cruel in this exchange. But but I love that he pointed out and asked the question, like, how you're in a room with people who disagree with your ideology and no one's harming you, no one's coming at you, no one's trying to make you not exist. That's something that people say, which I think is so interesting and hysterical when you're talking to someone and you're like, I don't know, from your identity, like, you don't think I exist? I'm like, I'm having a conversation with you. If I didn't think you existed, I'd be talking to myself. And you think I'm crazy or something? Like, obviously you're right there. And he just laughs. Like, I don't know what ran through his head, but he's obviously safe. He's obviously safe. And if he didn't feel safe, I don't think he would maybe have gone there. If he really, really thought that he was unsafe, I wouldn't just march into a Klan rally, unless there was the leading of the Holy Ghost and we were about to do some exorcism or something. Like, it's just not something like, that's just language. That's just hysterical kind of rhetoric. But unfortunately, people hear that rhetoric, they repeat it. And some people, it's so instilled within them that they'll go out and they would just take things to such an extreme because they're being gaslit and brainwashed by society that's telling them that they are unsafe when that is not the case.
We'll end with this because we're talking about womanhood. So people can probably shout out the question I'm going to ask you right now.
Okay.
But you know that you're a woman.
Yes.
What is that?
So gender is a social thing. It only
I don't
makes
want to hear
sense.
that. What is a woman? What is a woman?
What is a woman?
The word woman, define in the dictionary. Go.
A woman is somebody who is included and respected and seen and participates in society, recognized by other women. If you speak with women...
Circular definition.
That's mine. Whatever.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So again, you gotta just find some women who will affirm you, and then you get to be a woman. What if you are a man who's 40 or something, and you want to be a child, and you find a group of kids, and they will say, "Hey, you're 6 years old like me." Some things you just either are or you aren't, and however if you choose to live a certain way and believe something within yourself and see yourself a certain way, that's one thing. But expecting everyone else to jump on the train, that's where I got to stop you there. So again, to the people who thought Matt Walsh was too mean with this whole entire exchange, or I guess particularly the section when he says, I can tell that you're not a woman, that you wouldn't fool me. Why is that cruel? It's just, it is what it is. Again, his whole entire basis for an argument and belief within himself to affirm that he is a woman is a fact that other people validates his opinion. So I think it was necessary. But again, if people thought that was too mean, I don't know where we go from here. But anyway, that was a great job from Matt. There's another really viral clip. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. I don't have the time to go through that one too, because that one's like a 5-minute exchange, and obviously it will take us a long time to go through it. So, but I'm gonna bring on Tina here. Can you?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
So, this is my sister, and my youngest sister. Well,
Oh, I'll scoot over a little bit.
so I wanted to bring her on because I wanted to talk about D&D, because D&D is getting rid of half-elves. So I'm going to read an article from Bounding into Comics and go through their story about all this. So you are a half-elf, correct, Tina?
Yeah. I play as a half human, half drow. So a half dark elf.
So could you explain to the people who may not know what Dungeons and Dragons is?
So Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. They have base rules and base stats for different races, for different fighting classes that you could be, and each race gets a certain ability scores that others don't. And the newest edition, along with them getting rid of the half elf and the half orc stat block, they are also changing it from being races to species, because the word race has had negative connotations in the community for a long time. But I'm just like, they're all humanoids, so they're all different races of humanoids. So if you change it to species, it gets into like, feels like it's getting into weird furry and scaly communities by referring to them as species now. And so it just feels like it's getting a little bit weird and a little bit more woke by changing the language and trying to be more inclusive, but it feels a little icky.
Yeah, so this article is from Bounding into Comments, and they're Bounding into Comics. In their latest step forward on their long march to lost profits, Wizards and Coast has revealed that they will be removing the concept of half species from Dungeons and Dragons players' handbook on the grounds that they are not comfortable including an inherently racist concept in the game. This forthcoming update was the first announced publicly at a recent D&D Creator Summit, an event wherein Wizards of the Coast gathered a number of notable personalities ranging from game developers to content creators and provided them with a sneak peek of Dungeons & Dragons' upcoming releases. Following a rocky start to the summit marred with various technical difficulty issues, the publisher eventually hosted a demo of their upcoming D&D virtual tabletop, after which D&D led rules designer Jeremy Crawford, senior story designer Chris Perkins, and studio art director Josh Herman appeared for a Q&A session with the attendees. Eventually, the post-demo Q&A turned into a topic of World's WOTC, is that World's...
Wizards of the Coast.
Wizards of the Coast, sorry. Ongoing efforts to sanitize D&D, beginning with a question about how exactly the publisher makes use of their sensitivity readers. We don't send everything to the same people all the time, Crawford explained to their content review process. Per a summary of the event posted on EN World Forum by users and recap provided by content creator Daniel Kwan. Different reviewers have different areas of expertise and experience. Everything gets sent to at least 2 people, sometimes more. The old inclusion review process has holes in it because they would only send out what they thought would be a problem. Now everything is sent out, so we aren't guessing what might be a problem. Our team are game designers and storytellers. We're not experts in culture and inclusion, he added, so we're focused on what damage should this creature do. That's why everything goes through the inclusion review now, so everything in our game brings out delight. Even reprints are going through inclusion review. That's why some older books are changing too. Further elaborating on WOTC's process, the designers detailed, we get a full report. We then address the issues identified. We have a conversation, then it goes back to the reviewers so they can see what we did and comment as to whether it addressed the issue. We also now send the art, even the sketches, through a review process. Jeremy thinks of it as inclusion collaboration because it's a conversation going on. To this end, Crawford then confirmed that due to the game now having 4 elf variants for players to choose from when creating a character, standard elves, high elves, wolf elves, and the drow, the player's handbook would soon be revised to do away with half species. Frankly, we are not comfortable and haven't been for years with any of the options that start with half, he explained of this decision. The half construction is inherently racist, so we simply aren't going to include it in the new player's handbook. Unsurprisingly, Crawford did not expand on his accusation, and thus his reasoning behind the claim remains unknown. So, Tina, why are half elves racist?
I don't know. Half elves and half orcs are two of the most popular races to choose from in the game. When I was going through the threads on Twitter of the article, people were saying, "Oh, I'm half this, I'm half that. Are you guys trying to say that people like me don't exist, or people like that in the world don't exist?" So I did a little bit of digging into the new update that's going to be coming to the player's handbook. And so instead of having specific stat blocks for the half elves and the half orcs and them removing them, they are saying now any race can have children together, any species rather can have children together. So if you want to be a dragonborn and marry a tabaxi, which is a cat race of people, you could have half lizard, half cat babies. Yeah. So they're saying that you could have any stats from any two species together and make children now, instead of the ones that made more sense that could have children together that had more humanoid features, and like they could be, but none of the Dungeons and Dragons rules are set in stone. You talk to your dungeon master and you work with them, and they work around what your backstory is and help develop your character. So if someone wanted to be a weird subspecies race and have a bunch of different things, they could have done that without the game developers saying, "Hey, you can do that now," because a lot of people don't go by the book. Because there are games that you could specifically like go through, like you meet this person in this tavern, like there are like playthroughs that you can specifically buy, but most people do what's called homebrew, where it's just where you take the base rules, the base stats of the characters, the base classes, and you make up your own story. I did a homebrew thing with some of my friends about a month or two ago, and we had a Bible campaign. I had to make up some of the stats, and they were all basically variants of humans, but we had Canaanites, we had Philistines, we had Israelites, and it was a fun time. They had a great time. They learned a lot because none of them are the least bit religious, but they learned a lot and they had fun. But Dungeons and Dragons is already such a vast thing, and it's so expansive, and so them coming in and saying, "Hey, we're going to get rid of these two things that that people really like because we're uncomfortable with it, and make it so that any species can have babies together to be inclusive." It feels weird, and the fact that reprints of older editions of the books are going to be edited in that way also feels weird. Also feels a little bit like 1984. Just putting that out there. And one article
but it's
I read,
what the inclusivity board has decided, Tina. we have to be inclusive, and the board has spoken.
It's weird, and it feels wrong, and it also, something happened with D&D Beyond, specifically with me a while back when I first was doing my I had ran a game and there are certain races and classes on the Dungeons and uh, Dragons website that you could only get if you pay for. And so I was like, oh, I want to see the stats of a changeling because there's changelings in this campaign. So I paid to have that access to it. But and those were they were in a certain book. I believe it was Eberron Rising from the Last War, which was the book that I had paid to have access to for this specific thing. But then they did an update where changelings were from another book series, and now I don't have access to those stat blocks and those sheets anymore because they put in a different book.
So the thing that you paid for, you don't have access to anymore.
Yep, I don't have access to on their website anymore because they changed it into a different book.
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
I own nothing and I'll be happy, basically. And so they said the half elf and the half orc will still stay on D&D Beyond. I doubt that it'll stay on D&D Beyond because I can't access changelings anymore. So yeah, it feels really weird that they're making this move. It feels woke, but not even in like a good way, not even like in a progressive way. It just feels like nobody asked for this, and now you're doing this thing that nobody asked for, and now people are like, yeah, this is why people are switching to Pathfinder instead of staying with Dungeons and Dragons. Pathfinder is another tabletop thing. The rules are similar and stuff, but people are switching over because Wizards of the Coast, they keep making weird moves, and there was the whole issue with the open licensing thing back in January and December. So they keep changing rules, and so people in the gaming community are just like, yeah, I think we're gonna play something else.
So, but back to the statement, because I know there's this background about opening up the species or whatever, but they said themselves that it's inherently racist to have half something.
I don't get why I don't get why the person said that, and in any articles that I could try and look up, there was no elaboration, because I don't. Way back in like the 80s and the stuff, there were certain connotations with certain races that people speculated that like certain races were supposed to be black people, certain races were supposed to be Jewish, blah blah blah. That was never in the game, that was never stated in the game. People just made assumptions, and so maybe they're trying to right a 50-year or 40-year wrong of assumptions, but nobody literally thinks that black people are dark elves from the Underdark. Nobody thinks that. Nobody has that connotation. There was actually a skit in Community, which was a comedy show back on NBC, and they played Dungeons and Dragons on the show. And Ken, how do I forget his last name? But he's in a lot of stuff. He's on The Masked Singer. Ken Jeong, I believe, is his last name. He played a Chinese guy on that show named Chang, who was crazy. But his character was a dark elf, and he full dark elf, had white hair, completely black skin. And so the black girl in the group was like, we're not going to address that hate crime. And he's like, I'm not black, I'm a dark elf. And he's basically like, that assumption is your fault, not mine. They banned that episode on every streaming site.
You will have nothing, you will own nothing, you will be happy. Yeah, and side note, if there's something out there that you love, you should buy a physical copy of it. You should not like trust that Disney Plus is going to be there forever, which, you know, I'm like anti Disney Plus or whatever, but like just go buy your own stuff, have physical copies, DVDs, like, or put stuff in hard drives, though hard drives can fail, you know. If you got your tapes, make sure they're fine and you have a VCR that still works. You know, don't depend that the stuff that you love is going to be available in a digital format forever, especially because people can go back and edit stuff out or add to it or whatever without your consent. Like, you go and you pay for something and it's how you remember it, but, you know, like, you don't have your changeling information anymore. So,
I gotta go on bootleg websites to see what my character does.
So like, I mean, Katrina has DVDs of The Office and stuff when they were talking about taking that, down. But there's some of the episodes of The Office they won't play, on air, right? Like a Comedy Central.
I think so. I think Diversity Day they don't play anymore, which is diverse. Diversity Day was one of the best episodes in the first season because the first season it was really rocky. All the episodes were an hour long, and so some things just went on too long. But Diversity Day was one of the best things about the season one, and they don't even play it anymore.
Yeah. So, I don't know why the assertion or the definitive statement of if something is half, then it's racist. Because in my mind. Well, first of all, it's a fantasy game or whatever they're talking about anyway. So to say something like that, to me, it seems like they're inferring something within our real world and projecting it into their game. And so now I'm like, okay, well, if to be half is inherently racist, what does that mean? So if people refer to Obama as half black, half white, which people just normally just, think of him as black, but he is mixed. Is that racist to point out that he's not all black? Like,
I don't,
because that at least that's where my mind is going, to just say if something is half, then it's just inherently bad or whatever, or inherently racist was what they said.
Yeah, I mean that's probably along the lines of thinking that they have, but again, it's a fantasy world. It's fantasy races, and some of the races that they have that aren't stated as half or whatever, they are descendant from like tieflings. They have demon blood in them, and there's another race that have angel blood in them. So it's like they're descendants of these beings that were half at some point, but you're not going to say that, oh, tieflings are racist. Having tieflings is racist because, they started from a lineage of half human, half demons, and so you can't have them anymore because it's like, why specifically the half-elves and the half-orc? That's it feels weird and feels wrong, especially since they're like, oh, well, you can be any type, you can have any combo that you want. This is, people were already doing that. People are already making weird fan art of different races together. I mean, people were already doing it. They didn't want your permission because it was already happening. But now it's like, okay, you're taking away the thing that people enjoyed and trying to appeal to a weirder spectrum of people that were playing the game.
So how does it impact you being a half elf at all?
Well, as long as I can still get those stat blocks from bootleg websites, then no, it doesn't directly impact. But there were certain abilities that were given to.
I'm sorry, I just thought of the Harry Potter. I'm just like, Dobby is a free. That's what it's playing in my head as you're talking now.
As long as people still have access to those stat blocks, then no, nothing will change. But will people always have access since they're saying they're updating their books to reflect those rules? No, but I think maybe in like 5 or 10 years time, it'll be gone from D&D Beyond, the half orc and the half elf.
Yeah, it's amazing how people will try to be so not inclusive and not racist that they will do something that's kind of racist, like Dragon Ball Z when they said you know what I'm about to say. When they start doing Dragon Ball Kai, which I didn't like Kai. Dragon Ball Kai is like just Dragon Ball Z, but they've cut it up some to, I don't know, make it go by faster, and they did different edits too. So they changed Mr. Popo, and they made him blue instead of black. Like he's pitch black. Like you see the black of my background right here with this step and repeat with my logo. That's how black Mr. Popo was. So he's black. He's got these big eyes, white eyes, just dots, and he's got red lips. So he does look like a minstrel show kind of person. So, but it's a different country. I don't think that's why why they did that. I mean, I've never been able to find really that connection. People infer that, and maybe I'm wrong, but but them changing him and making him blue all of a sudden, I'm like, that's not what Mr. Popo looks. I'm like, do you think that I think that he's black? I'm like, I don't even think he's human. Like, what? Why is he blue? Why did you make him? Now I'm offended. I wasn't offended before, but now I'm offended. Like, why is he blue?
Besides, black people all thought Piccolo was black anyway. They're like, Piccolo black. He green, but he black.
He's not human, but
Yeah, they acclaimed him and not Mr. Popo.
Yeah, I've never seen like anyone, so it was making him blue all of a sudden. Like, how many? I mean, maybe there's newer people watching the show or woke or whatever, but growing up watching all the things that you watch through Dragon Ball that are like sexist and offensive and and all of a sudden you go back and say, hey, Mr. Popo being black, like literally black people aren't Mr. Popo black. So
they aren't. They are not.
There's nobody. They had black people on the show. And most black people on the show, especially like in Dragon Ball, I remember Goku, Krillin went to somebody's house and it was a black woman. She was hefty. I think she had like curly afro hair kind of. And she was dark, but nobody is Mr. Pope. That is inhuman.
Yeah.
He's not human. So
he was like sitting on top of like the world and like defending Kame. So it was just like you just automatically assumed that he was some sort of alien because he was like, because Kame was like, the god or whatever. So it was like, you just assumed that he was some otherworldly being.
Yeah. So them making him blue was, I'm like, what is y'all trying to say? What is y'all trying to say? So, but yeah, they made him blue. So sometimes, and people will do it all the time with anime. Maybe that needs to be like a different session. They'll infer sort of all these Western ideas into stuff. Like, I mean, in the anime, when it's just not that deep, it's just not that deep. I don't like that Hercule's name in Japanese is Mr. Satan. I don't like that in the least bit. I think that they think it's funny. And that's why they did it over there. It doesn't have maybe the same sort of, mainstream revulsion that you'd have like over here. So, over here it's edited and his name is Hercule. Yeah. People just have different sensibilities, and you can disagree with it or whatever, but cultures are different. But again, Mr. Popo never would have crossed my mind that he was black, and they made him blue for whatever reason.
Yeah. I had brought up the articles to my Dungeons and Dragons group last night before we started playing, and we're a very diverse group. Like, I'm black, obviously. We have black people, we have white people, we have Asians, we have Hispanics, and so all the minorities in the group are basically like, this is a group of white people that made this decision, wasn't it? Like, I cannot see any of my people doing this. I can't see any of your people doing this.
I mean, I don't know. There's the infection keeps spreading, so I don't know. I don't know. It's not always just crazy white. Sometimes people are like, I know a white person said this. I'm like, no, sadly they were black. There was a black person. So
I mean, that's true. There's no telling who was on the inclusivity board, but I watched like the promo for the new. They call it because like it's like 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition. They're calling it D&D 1 because it's including a lot of things from all the different editions, and they're actually nerfing some like play some classes and stuff, and like changing like a whole bunch of stuff, and they're like, we're not taking anything out. I'm just like, it took out the whole stat block for half-elves and half-orcs, and they're like rearranging how even like different classes get spells and stuff. So yeah, and it was just like in the video, it was just like one white person after another. Not saying that there should be other races, and I'm just like, it was one of you, wasn't it, that took away my half-elves?
Even white people go, it was white people, wasn't it? but nowadays it could be anybody. I mean, like I said, the sickness, the wokeness, it's just spreading everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, what a crazy thing to say. I hope some people press him to try to clarify his position,
Yeah.
and he walks it back, because that's a heck of a statement and definitive statement, and it's something, I don't know. I imagine it was like, I'm saying it's like, it's obvious. We all agree it's just inherently racist. I don't need to explain myself there.
Yeah. To explain, because I don't know who, maybe some of the connotations with the people being othered or whatever, but there are literally classes and people in the books that are just like, these people are inherently evil because they descended from demons, and these people are inherently good because they descended from such and such. So if, to me, that's more problematic than someone being a half something. It's like, oh yeah, all these people that are born, they're probably evil.
Well, I hope you can still love your game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been sticking with it for 3 years, like being this one character. But I mean, I've done other like one shots and two shots, and there've been other characters and other races and stuff. But it's just so weird to me that they want to get rid of the stat blocks for this one specific beloved group. It's just weird.
Tis our world. Tis
Yeah.
our world. They're changing so many different things, and it's like, it's everywhere. But anyway, I don't know how many people are in the chat that really are into D&D or just fascinated by another woke thing, because we didn't see that much drop when we switched topics. But thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Costs a stream, costs from my website, all that good stuff. So if you can support and would like to support, I very much appreciate it. Otherwise, thank you for watching, for commenting. Tina here is the person who I've been talking about a lot, because she did the artwork for my book cover, Of Course God is Blatantly Against Abortion. So sometimes you guys will see her in the chat, but
Now you see me live.
yeah, this is her. She did this cover right here. So how difficult was that, Tina?
It wasn't terribly difficult. Well, first I was trying to do it more like an ink and quill type of thing, but then I was like, nah, I think it needs to, like, I think you had said you wanted it in color, and so I had to like redo what I was doing. And hands can be a challenge for any artist. That's why a lot of people just don't bother with hands or have hands in like weird positions. But I think hands close up is a lot easier to do than like a full body photo.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too difficult to do. It was just trying to get the right shading, and then trying to get like the right texture to make it look aged, and then trying to find a good baby hand reference. I was looking at like hundreds of pictures of babies and just like, why is it so hard? Just like swiping through my phone, like, why is it so hard to find a good baby? But yeah, just
It looks like it came from a cute baby though. That's a cute baby hand. No, but you did a great job. So anyway, if anyone's interested in Tina's works, which there's some of her art behind her right there.
Yeah. Got some tiny paintings.
And she has a ton of little teeny paintings. I would get them for different people that I worked with, or and they put them on their desk, put them around their house and stuff. But she does obviously paint larger paintings and does commission work and stuff. So
I actually painted this chalice. It was just all copper for any of our people that are into fantasy.
Do you have any of her shoes with you?
Not in front of me, no.
Not in front of you. She can do custom paintings on shoes and other stuff like that too. So she does great work. So go ahead and visit her website. Tina's textportraits.com.
And there's no apostrophe in that. That's a typo on my part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did notice that. I'm like, you don't type that in when you go to the website. But
I just typed out Tina's text portraits before, and then I was like, I should probably do the website. And then
she has a YouTube page too. I don't know. Did you type anything in the comments so people can just like look at your comment and then go to your page?
Just did.
So she just did. So if anyone wants to follow her, please follow her and check out her stuff. And she has some speed paintings, you know, of different stuff that she does. And her text portraits are really cool too. So, and we talked about this yesterday when I said that I'm like, my sister's going to they didn't do a photo of Trump doing a mugshot. I'm like, I'm going to have my sister do a picture. We're going to put on a t-shirt. This is the sister. I was like, Tina, if you're in the chat, get to work. And make the Trump mugshot thing. Which, by the way, the Trump campaign really, really wanted him to have a mugshot. They wanted that to use that, but they didn't end up doing that. So they just like photoshopped it and put on a t-shirt or whatever. So I was waiting for the mugshot for the same thing. So we're still gonna do it. We're still gonna do it.
We're still gonna do it.
We're still gonna do it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Tina, for coming on.
Yeah,
and,
I have fun.
And sharing your nerd experience and shedding some light on a topic I don't know anything about other than you play it. So, so thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.